All right, we are going to get started. I am going to move out of the way, and we're going to open the floor up for questions. We ask that we remember we only have an hour. We've got our online people, so we have 2 of us with mics, so we're going to kind of split the room in half. 3 of us, sorry. If you have questions, raise your hand, and a mic will get to you for you to ask your question.
Sean, the question I have to you is this. You have said you cannot restore community if you have not built community.
Yes.
Las Vegas is a relatively young community.
Yes.
And I know of only really one place in Las Vegas where there is an established community, and that's in the Black community on the west side. So what do you say about building community here in Las Vegas when we have so very little community? How would we do that?
I wouldn't, and to be honest with you, I wouldn't just say that it's only the Black community as well.
No,
That's where you go though.
that's where it's built. There is a strong built community that's been there for at least 60 years?
Yeah, plus. Plus really, because I'm actually born and raised in Vegas here. I grew up on the west side and north side of Las Vegas. I'm first generation Vegas. So what that means, my father, he's from Athens, Georgia. My mom's from East Side Oakland. And they came here. My dad was in the Air Force. And my mom came because she did Job Corps up north and then came to work in the casinos. Boop, here's Sean. And then when they got divorced, that's when, I got enmeshed with the west side and north side of Las Vegas. I had no clue, and I just kind of learned along the go. But your question is, to answer your question, you said, how would you build community? I just want to make sure I answered it. How would you build? So one of the things is really just, the one I will say is getting to know each other, for one. I'll say this because we started the men's room, myself, another woman named Patrina McKinney, and my 2 frat brothers, Quentin and Sylvester. Patrina actually came to me and was like, hey, I want to create a safe space for Black men, but I'm not a Black male, and I don't know how to interact, so she got us together. And I knew how to do restorative justice. They knew the topics that we can talk about, and honestly, it was supposed to be just a 3-day event. It ended up now we've been doing this for almost 2 years. Like Black men, we actually met here at UNLV once, where we met collectively, but it started to build something where us Black men, we come meet, and it's private, it's only for Black men, but that's because we just don't have a space where our voices are heard. And oftentimes we walk in spaces where we're not taken seriously, or we have to come 20 times more prepared so that we're taken seriously. So I mentioned that to say, if you really want to start community, again, it's like I told you all before, it has to start with you. But giving yourself grace to the fact that you're not perfect, and understanding you have barriers you already coming in with, you have trauma that you're coming in with. But if you're open to healing, then you're open to restoring. If you're open to restoring, you're open to build. But you have to be willing to build. It takes time, and not every time you build with your community, it's all going to be peaches and cream. Sometimes it's going to be frustrating. It's going to be irritating, but it takes time. Things don't just happen overnight. Things don't happen in one semester or one academic year. And we put things on timelines that's unrealistic. We put expectations on things. Oh, this is how I said it to be. It took what? How long for us to really recognize that Vegas actually has grown in the past 30 years, and it's still a young city. It's been a young city for a long time. 60 plus years now, the city? Well, not 60 plus, 70 really plus, but for really Vegas to be what it is, it's just finally now built a culture. So it takes time. That's what I would say to you is really what are you trying to build? What community are you trying to build, and what for? That's what I would say is how you start to build a community. Hope that answered your question.
Another question for Sean in particular. Why did you choose to use Invictus for the beginning of your restorative circle and for the end as well?
I appreciate it. So when in a restorative circle, you can either start with a poem or phrase or a song, and that really carries the tone of the circle. And the reason why I used Invictus, there's actually some very subliminal meanings to that poem, but it's really self-inflicted. It's really a reminder for you all that even just thinking about, out of the night that covers thee, black is the pit from pole to pole. I think whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul, right? Being in a space at times where it's dark and you don't see a light, reminding yourself, if you at that lowest point, that you know what, you have the ability to still keep going. And I did that poem for y'all because as educators, most of y'all don't give grace to each other. Most of you don't give grace to other people, or most of them don't give grace to you. But then we're expected to hold up to these standards and rules and regulations and still get our jobs done, but you guys keep going to them anyway. But reminding yourself that, hey, like, you are in control of you. No one else, you're not in control of anyone else, but you're in control of you. And it's really a motivator, which is why I used it. But there is that one part in the poem that I love. I don't love, but it reminds me of where my ancestors come from. You know that part where I said, it matters not how straight the gate, how charged the punishments of the scroll. Do you know where that comes from? So back when, my last name's a slave name, Tory. It's a slave name, and whenever you messed up, you didn't pick enough cotton, or you didn't do a certain task, they would mark you how many times you was gonna get slashed, punishments of the scroll. So no matter how many times you were gonna get beaten, no matter how many times life is gonna throw you crazy obstacles, I'm still gonna make it anyway. That type of perseverance is beautiful. It sucks, but it's beautiful. And that's why I chose the poem for y'all today. Because y'all get lashed all the time, may not physically, but mentally.
We have a question from online. And Sylvina, it's specifically for you.
Thank y'all.
As someone who is monolingual, how do I integrate trans-languaging when I don't understand their language?
Oh, wow. So for all of those who don't know what translanguages is, it's what it's known as, what typically is known as Spanglish, right? It's utilizing the two languages in the classroom. So obviously, being monolingual, that's a big challenge. What I can think of is allow the student to actually teach you. I don't know where to look because it's online, right? So there. So actually, try to learn basic words. So try to learn the words that, the main words that are in your lesson, right? And translate it yourself, do the research, what's the background and the different words, and then show the student that, or the students that you have made the effort of like meeting them in the spaces that they actually are. So that would be one way, right? It's obviously very difficult to translanguage, to code switch as a teacher if you don't have the knowledge of the two languages or three languages or whatever. That would be a way, just learn, keep on learning.
I'm going to open that question up. I normally just ask the questions, but she mentioned code switching and the idea of translanguaging, so I'm going to open up beyond just traditional bilingual students, but to both of you as well, maybe to someone who doesn't speak standard English for that matter.
And not only that, we could switch even culturally, right, all the time, or even in accordance with the roles that we have in society, right? I'm a mom, so I talk with my son in a way, and then I'm a teacher, and I'm code switching and showing up in that space in that way that I need to be successful for me as a professional, me as a teacher, right? So we're code switching all the time, and the translanguaging piece is specifically, obviously, for the language environment. But yeah, it used to be that translanguaging was a big no-no in the dual language environment. It was like, the child has to be fully in the English language, and then they go to the Spanish, and you cannot mix and I grew up like that, right? My story, I'm product of bilingual education in Uruguay, and we had from 8 to 12, we had the Uruguayan curriculum all in Spanish, and then from 1 to 5, we had the British curriculum all in English, and they wouldn't mix. And then, research how language evolves, how we understand how we acquire language. We understand that language transfers from one to another one. So what we learn in one, then our brain, as it acquires that new language, whatever that might be, it's able to utilize it in that new language. So that's why now the spaces that we're trying to create in dual language do encompass that theory, that framework of translanguaging.
Okay, we have another one. What is the best way to interact with parents that do not speak English and get them involved in their students' education?
Okay, so there are obviously many ways. Community building is very important. We currently have a group that is called the Parent Leadership Team, right? And this has been, I think, the most successful way for teachers to be able to reach out to parents. And it has started like 2 years during pandemic, right? And it's parents teaching parents. So one way that you can do it is teachers maybe asking another teacher that is familiar with that language to help you reaching out with parents, or find a parent that does more or less navigate the language spaces, and then have that parent kind of like teach the other parents. Because what we have learned is that we learn from our peers, right? And parents is the same. And honestly, in education, they trust other parents more than they trust teachers sometimes, or districts if it has been challenging or like a lot of roadblocks within the district. Parents trust other parents. Translation tools, obviously, that's something that it's readily available for everyone. There's some communication tools like, and I'm sure if I start throwing names of apps, Talking Points, Remind, what's the elementary school one? Dojo, thank you. I'm thinking about. So I don't know if Dojo now has translation. Okay, I figured. I saw it when I was like 9 years ago for the first time. So all those tools actually have language translators embedded in the applications. So you can send out a message to the parents in your language and they read it in the other one. And it goes back and forth like that. So that's those tools, technology, es un arma de doble filo, right? It can be used for good and not so good, but in this case, it's really, really useful. Make sure that when you send out communications to the parents, you are aware of the languages that are spoken in your classroom, so do the translation, even if it's with Google Translate. Yes, it's not perfect, but it does help, and the families appreciate the fact that you take the time to actually run it through the translator. And that creates relationship with the parents. It does build community, even though you are from outside. Invite the parents to the classroom. This is something that culturally I don't see it here. In my country, who's from Argentina? Where's the Argentinian? Yes, thank you. We have parent meetings. We invite the parents once a month to our classrooms. It doesn't matter if you're first grade, kindergarten, high school. And I started doing that with my high schoolers. And my classroom last semester was 80% of my parents were there. And it was an after school, I bought some pizza, whatever, some things. But they were there, the teachers were available for them. They were asking questions. I was telling them like what the system how the system works. These kind of things. Invite the parents to your class, to after school event or something like that. There's many ways of building community, right? But those are some ideas.
Can I just add a little piece? We were in the back talking about, over lunch, talking about humility and how powerful a tool that is for us as teachers, and recognizing that we will never ever know everything.
Yeah.
But there's something really powerful about trying. What might you be able to do that would help parents understand that you're attempting to meet them somewhere? Spanish is any language. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words, a whole sentence maybe, will take you a long way, at least as a beginning. So then it sometimes, somehow puts you at the same level as those parents. attempting to work in a system that is in a language that is not necessarily their own. So I think there's still nothing short of, we may never get really good at a language, but these attempts to try to communicate in a language, I think, say so much about who we are as people that is really important. I'm trying to meet you. I'm not expecting that you solely meet me. And I think that's really, really an important thing to do. Try.
Yeah.
Even if it's not pretty, try. Because the attempts, at least I have found, really matter to people.
I'm going to add something else, because as you're talking about this, the content that you bring into your classroom too. If you are aware of like creating a lesson that represents, right, all the Latinx kids in your room, then that kid is gonna go and tell their parent, oh look mom, they're talking about my country, right? And the parent's gonna get engaged, and the parent's gonna be like, oh my God, this teacher is so cool. Like, you know, she recognizes that, you know, my son needs to, you know, see her own culture, you know, represented in the classroom. That's super powerful. So content also, you know, reaches the parent. So sorry that.
No, that's good.
But I was thinking about it.
That's good.
Hi, my question is in regards to like collaborating with other educators, because that's a component to being a teacher. I just want to know how I, as someone who's not in the classroom yet, can kind of cultivate a culturally responsive, I guess, like plans and stuff with other educators if they're not as like they don't want to achieve that as much. Does that help? Is that good?
Are you sort of in a student teaching role? Is
Yeah,
that what
I
you're
would
thinking?
say I'm more like a student teaching role than actually being.
And your teacher isn't quite there as far as you're concerned,
Well,
relative to culturally responsive teaching.
He's like and in my practicum, he's kind of an older teacher, so he's been there for like 17 years. So the way he teaches is not necessarily how I would teach.
Gotcha.
But like in general, when I do become a teacher and I want to create a community of students that are culturally present in their class, you know. But how can I work with other educators who aren't there yet?
Can I go?
Yeah,
Do you
go.
mind? I'm in that space all the time, right? As a Latina teacher, we do have obviously schools are majority, you know, white teachers, unfortunately. But offer yourself to create PDs for your teachers in the school. That's a space that I'm being currently allowed to be, right? And I've been talking to my teachers about the WIDA descriptors, right? Like some stuff that I have done in my multicultural ed, right? So, and they hear me using the word intentionally, mindfully, emerging bilinguals, intersectionality, right? Like all these words that are in our multicultural education spaces that maybe they have never, you know, have been in that space of offer yourself. I know some schools, you know what they do? They, if you do it after school, for example, here in CCSD, your administrator might have money to pay you for the hourly rate. You can get CUs actually as a teacher if you do trainings for your teachers, whether it's in your school or in other schools. So they're recognizing our time, which is nice, right? The hourly rate, just to let you know, is $31.50, right? So you get there per hour, right? Sometimes when you get that opportunity, the district or the school can pay the teachers who attend. I think doing PDs, you yourself putting it together, you know, reaching out to teachers to recruit them to come, because believe it or not, a lot of times teachers are offered to get the hourly rate and they don't show up. I show up, $30. Or more, 60, usually it's like an hour and a half, 2 hours, right? But doing, like, you being an agent of spreading out that word that you want to spread, that changes culture too. So I think that's powerful. I don't know if you could say something else.
I think it's powerful. But I think it's also important that there be reciprocal spaces
Right.
where you can also be a learner
Yeah.
and not always having to teach. So
Yes.
I agree with
Yes.
you, and
Yes.
having these spaces where you might be able to
Yeah.
actually engage as a learner too.
Yes.
I have a question for Sean. You mentioned with your group how it's exclusively for Black men to have that safe space.
Yep.
So in our particular schools, if we want to start building the culture that we want, would you recommend that we start with groups that provide like participants to create that safe space? Or would we look more for mixed groups? Like if we're trying to, separate from our classroom culture,
Yeah.
you know, where we obviously can't control who's mixed in that group, but if we were to provide something, you know, separate from our classrooms, maybe like after school,
Yeah.
before school, lunch times, you know, where the kids can choose their own, you know, of their own accord to become parts of those circles and those communities, would you recommend that we start with like-minded groups or mixed groups?
I would say yes to both, because I've been in the space where there was the voluntold group where, hey, you're in this group, and then there was ones who organically they wanted it, they seeked it. So I have some constructive criticism for it, but what I would suggest to you is, because which group are you trying to identify, right? Like that you're trying to build this culture with. Is it with, sorry, my hearing aids are dying. Anywho, what group of students you're trying to build this community with, and also the staff that's trying to build it with them, you also have to be a part of that community too. So that the first way to start is, which group are you trying to do it for, and what's the goal, right? What's the goal of you trying to build this community for? Because that's really going to drive you. Because if it's that good, you're going to organically get people who want to keep coming. There are going to be more to come, because they're going to want to experience what these other kids have experienced. Like, oh man, you need to come to this. That word of mouth is strong. And so first things first, like I said, I repeated it more times than I can. Understand what group you're trying to start with. Who do you want to be in this culture, and who do you want to be in this community and build with? Because if you're opening the door for people, just be ready for what's coming with that as well. No problem. By the way, it's not easy. It's not easy. I know it's not. And I know this has all been, I wanted to add to that. I know that this is something that is growing pains, but accept that. That's part of the process, is that it's not all meant to be perfect. I've been in circles where that's why the community agreements is there, because there's people who want to go at it, like yell and go at it, and you have to remind them, like, hey, we all agree to these community agreements. And being harmful that way, or you can be frustrated. If you need to vent, let us know. But don't go at each other, not in this space, because then that's when you do a restorative circle, when harm's been done. So always understanding the difference between a community circle and a restorative circle. Not everything is a restorative circle, but you're always trying to build so that when something happens, you have something to restore. Hope that answers.
Sylvina, I am a Spanish speaker. It's not my first language. It's my parents' first language. English, fortunately for me, was my first language. I have a student in my class who came directly from Mexico, pretty well educated, and whose parents are educated, but completely monolingual Spanish speakers, both parents and children in the family. I'm really frustrated she came in the middle of the year, because I am in the lowest performing school in the school district, so I have kids in my third grade class who are at kindergarten level.
Yeah.
I only have one student that is on level. So I have students who are academically challenged, who are English speakers, who have to be in special groups and everything. So I placed this student in that group, but I feel as if I am neglecting her. I do not feel that I am fully educating her, and I have also told my administration, I think, and I support this, that I think the school district is set for being sued by parents who are Spanish speakers and that their children are not adequately educated within the Clark County School District. And this has been going on for years. And I see it in my own classroom that I am not able to give that child the quality of education that I'm able to give to the other children. Now, I have been doing some things. For instance, I try and find the lessons in Spanish for math and some of the concepts that are being taught in English for reading. Because if you have that literacy component in Spanish, you can also have it in English. It can be transferable. But I have her partnered with someone, with a student that helps her. And I'm fortunate because I tutor, and so she actually comes to me and I tutor her at the library. And I'm able to give her that one-on-one that I cannot possibly give her in the classroom. It's too much of a dedicated time. I just can't do it. So what else could you suggest that I could do for this child to increase the quality of the education that I could provide her?
Okay. So let me ask, so third grade? Third grade?
Third grade.
Let me ask you something. Is there an ESL professional in your school? An
Pardon?
English as a second language teacher or a facilitator?
There is nothing in my school.
Okay, so it's,
And we are a majority-minority school.
right.
And the principal majority is Latino.
Oh,
Oh, well.
There is no ESL program in my school.
okay, so maybe, have you spoken with your administrator about bringing a
I have, and it's kind of
facilitator?
like, sorry, we don't have it.
Okay. They're just what? Yeah, there's, I mean, the reality, I mean, and this is not only CCSD, so let's not like, you know, it's happening all across the board. There is a shortage of teachers, we know this, and especially, you know, in these areas of ESL, bilingual, dual language, etc. So it's not easy. The reality is we don't have, ESL programs have gone away because in my 9 years as an educator, I think it's one of the most difficult positions to fill. And because ESL as a whole, right, from elementary, middle school, secondary school, a lot of districts or a lot of states even don't have a framework for EL, right? The ESL teacher, and I started as an ESL teacher in Mississippi. Just, you know, process that for a minute. Believe it or not, Mississippi did have an EL framework at the state level. So, right, it's challenging. So I think we do have to give our district and our administrators and everything some grace because they're truly telling you the truth. There's no person that wants to go into that space. It's difficult, we don't get the resources, we don't know how to do it. The ESL teacher might get their ELAD endorsement because that's how you're an ESL teacher, right? Your ELAD endorsement, but then who trains me? My entire career, I've been alone on what I've done. I was telling, I don't know who, but my supervisor, I'm social studies. I get evaluated by my supervisor, who I have a great relationship, but she doesn't speak Spanish and I teach in Spanish. So, and I get evaluated, right? So, I mean, there's so many resources that we don't have. I think what you're doing, going back to your space, I think what you're doing is everything that you can do, right? Maybe network with some professionals in ESL per se, so you can get some tips, some strategies from that person, right? But you're doing everything. I know it's not the best response, and it's not what you want to hear, right? But I think based on what you described, you're giving that child everything that you can give them. I would, you know, I was telling one of the groups that being in the space that I am entails being an advocate for our students. And when we sign up for this, you guys, ladies, have to be aware that you have to push. You have to push through. You have to fight. You have to, be the person that's going to be a pain in the butt to the administrators sometimes. It's the role that you might not know it now, but I've learned that it's part of my job description to be that advocate for that child. So maybe one of the things you can do is understand in what ways can you bring an ESL professional, even if it's twice a week, right, to work with that child and to work with you. We have a new family engagement center in CCSD, so maybe reach out to a family engagement center. They have amazing programs that they can come to your school to actually, do workshops with the parents and the children and the teachers. We can talk more and I can show you where they are. But yeah, and we do have, and that's one thing. If we all agree, if there's something that we all agree, and I can say this, and I don't care if they're filming, CCSD does not do well communicating the resources that we have within the district. Like, there's so many things that are available for us as teachers, and just the communication doesn't get to us. So we had to perpetually be looking for the latest thing that came out. Like, how many of you knew that we have dual language now in CCSD? And if I go, thank you, 1, 2, right? But and if I ask this question to, in class, INSA research educators, probably 5 out of the entire thing knows that we're doing this. But I'll share with you those resources. Just keep on doing what you're doing. Advocate for that child and other children that probably are in your school, and keep on pushing the administrator. And I have to say, take advantage that your administrator is Latino, because in this district, we don't have many Latinx administrators. So that person also has a responsibility to our community. And just remind him or her every day that he or her does have that responsibility. Just be careful navigating the system, right? That's the challenge for us as professionals, learn to navigate a system that can be at times cruel to us, right? But it's all worth it. I so promise it. I so promise it. Yes? Okay. Yes. Yes? Yes. We had to.
My question is, as teachers, is there a way for us to break the stigma that our Latino students, just because they put that they speak Spanish at home, doesn't mean they actually speak it? A lot of times, like my children, they only understand it, but are labeled as English language learner students and are left with that label throughout their education.
Mm-hmm. So what's the question? Sorry again.
Is there anything as teachers that we can do to
yes.
break that label?
Yes. I think that learning about that label and how deficit-based that label is, and bringing onto the table, that asset-based emerging bilinguals, developing multilinguals idea, and start speaking in that manner, right? And start speaking to your students that if they were placed in an ELL program, right, that's not something to be ashamed of, right? Because, for example, with the dual language, which is another model, right, for language acquisition, ESL is a very subtractive model, right? We ask the student to leave their mother tongue behind and, acquire a new one, right? But celebrate what they can do. Oh, look how cool, to my high school students, look how cool. You're gonna be able to say this in this language and the other language. You're gonna be able to write a whole essay in 2 languages. Be a champion for what it means to be bilingual or multilingual. First of all that, because that's contagious. And then the kids start talking about, at home, oh no, Mom, I want to do that in Spanish, or I want to do that in English, or I can do it in both languages. Look, I did it in Spanglish and my teacher was super cool about it. There's certain limits that we have to establish, but I think that is changing culture is gonna bring that label it's going to remove the stereotype that that label has, and explain and inform also, you know, the community at large in your school, why the student is still an EL student, or like, you know, so being knowledgeable about how that label originated and how it has evolved through our history and how it has been used to marginalize and segregate, and how we are going to start using that now. I think that work, again, he says it's not overnight, right, that it's going to happen, but you have to keep on with that narrative, right, and stay strong and speak to parents in, you know, through a very asset lens terminology, and speak to your students like that. Because your students are going to talk about like this, even with elementary school kids. Use the word asset-based, use the word intersectionality, the kids are going to understand it. Obviously, scaffolded to explain to them, you know, how it works. But they're going to start using it. And then they're going to bring that home. And then, so it's a lot of work. Where are you? Like, you sat down and I don't see anymore. Okay. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay.
We have another one from online. This one says, how do you break down cultural barriers in the classroom that prevent students from feeling comfortable sharing their culture with you? And I think this can be addressed by all three panelists.
Can you say the question one more time?
Yes. How do you break down cultural barriers in the classroom that prevent students from feeling comfortable sharing their culture with you?
You want to go? No, you got it first. I'm trying to think of a nice way to say it.
I think one of the ways to get rid of something is to build something else, right? So I guess in response generally, what is the culture that's trying to be built in that space? So if we walk into that room, is there a culture where children feel and the teacher feels powerful and positive in sharing their own stories? Is that the way we begin the semester, the quarter, the school year, with understanding the biographies of our children and the places they've come from? That feels like something that you're building. You're building that community and that culture within the classroom. I think I would look at it more that way than I would about deconstructing something that children already bring. But we got to build new cultures.
Can I add to that? So a lot of times teachers, you know, are like, okay, we have to get through the curriculum in X amount of time, right? They tell us, you have to teach all this, you have to cover all these standards, right? And a lot of times teachers are like, okay, day one, standard one, unit one, like you're like, okay. But to add on to what she was saying is, I don't start my curriculum, I teach social studies. I don't start curriculum until the third week of class. I spent the first week doing, and I'm high school, right? So the first week doing like course expectations and like how the school works, and like, you know, high school is challenging, you know, there's a lot of rules. And then second week I do community building activity, like identity, you know, we talk about our identities. And my classroom, believe it or not, is very homogeneous in a way, because we're all Spanish-speaking individuals, but we're very different because our countries are so different. I sound, and she knows, I sound like no one else except her in this room, even though you speak Spanish, right? And that carries my culture and tells my story, right? And participate of that activity with your children, with your students. Like, tell your story too.
Yep.
Right? Because that's, again, it's about building community. You know what? Curriculum can wait. Because if you don't do this as a teacher, then when you have to correct a behavior, maybe, that you get to that space, you have to go back to the beginning. You waste more time if the child doesn't trust you,
Mm-hmm.
if you didn't create that safe space for them, then, right? So again, I think, supplementing what she was saying is take the time.
Yeah.
It can wait, and tell that to your principal. Tell that to your
And it
principal.
should be not just in K-12.
Right.
I agree.
Like
It
those
should be
of us in
ed
higher
too.
education
Yep.
need to start teacher education the same way. And so I look out here and I wonder how much each of you know about the other teachers at your table. Do we know enough about the biographies and the incredible practices that are in this room? And do we know about the people who are here?
Yeah.
And so how do we also model the same kind of behavior
Yes.
we expect of teachers?
And I think one of the things I wanted to add to that is, because I said it before, being comfortable with the uncomfortable, and one of those things I know that is taboo to talk about in the classroom is race. So, and you're being told not to speak about race, right? No? Depends, because I hear from certain, it depends, because I hear from different teachers, oh, I talk about it, or no, they tell us not to, but that's also a part of your culture too, that you're trying to detach from. So if you have control of your classroom, you really have to ask the question to yourself. It's like I'm echoing them. What culture do you want to build?
Yeah.
You have to answer that first before you can even talk to anybody else. Yeah, you have this in the background, but like the activity I showed y'all,
Yeah.
what are you going to do? Are you going to stand to the side and let the system do what it do? Or are you going to be innovative? That's not for me to answer or any of us to answer. But you have the autonomy to do what's right in your classroom.
Yeah.
I hope that answers.
Okay, we have another one. There's a lot of underlying political or partisan issues that kind of weave through all of your work. In this current climate, how does a teacher balance that commitment to their student with what may very well be pushback in any of these three instances that may come from within your building, parents, or at the high school level, possibly some students?
Can you ask the question one more time? There's a couple things in that thing.
Given the political or partisan nature of the
Right,
work,
of the work.
how do teachers kind of balance the need for the work and commitment to their students with the pushback they may get from colleagues, administrators, parents, and or students?
Well, I think I'm not gonna lie to you, it's tough. Because the first thing I asked y'all, and I'll just use restorative justice as an example, because now restorative justice is in the same vein as where we look at critical race theory, restorative justice,
Yeah.
But I gave most of y'all an experience that you've never experienced before. But I appreciate the fact that you were open to it. And that's where it starts. Because many times we look at our students crazy because they take on things they don't know about or they have an opinion they haven't learned about. So what I would say to you all is be inclusive and open-minded to actually, all right, I'm not getting it from this way. Who do I need to go to get this answer? You have Dr. Walls, Tanya Walls. You have R. Joy. You have, this is an organization, right? There's different organizations, there are different people who are more than willing to talk to you. And I'm just using restorative justice as an example for you to learn about, opposed to you just getting it from one source. Even me, you can experience what I just gave you somewhere else too. But are you willing to go out to get it? 75% of the time, most people are not. They'll take what they heard and run with it.
Yeah.
And that sucks. Because I have a dream, MLK. But we don't want to talk about poor people's march, MLK.
Yeah.
That's critical race theory.
I'm gonna build on that. So social studies, high school, I teach government. it's a slippery slope, right? But I think it's part of our NEPF professionalism standard, right? If you want to, get in that space. I think it has to do with how we show up as professionals. Teachers don't get this enough, right? Like, we're not treated as professionals. I mean, especially in certain spaces, especially what happened after pandemic. You were not there, but first we were the heroes, then we were these like devils, and then we're like the indoctrinators of like sent by who knows whom, right? Like, what have you. But I think I think about what I have to teach in my government class, and we all come with our own biases into our room, with our own experiences, with our own angers sometimes, right? You're angry that day because someone was saying that the wall had to be up and no one can come in or out, like right? So we show up like that. But we have to do that inner work, right? A lot of inner work, and understand that I am a professional, and the best way, my objective is to teach my students the truth, right? Yep. In a very authentic manner, right? And the truth never has one side. The story is never one-sided, right? There's something that, there's two sides to everything. Show them both sides. I always say, make them read the New York Times and make them read, some conservative paper, right? And then tell them, okay, this is how this group of people interpreted something, and this is very high level, right? High school, right? But with the little ones, I'm sure you can scaffold it and do the same thing. And this is the other side. So like, what do you think? I'm leaving it up to you to see what you're more comfortable. How can you think about how you share your own experiences with this or that, and make them think critically, even if they're in first grade. There's ways of helping the first graders think critically. Oh my God, some little ones are like, and they're very opinionated and very, right? And sassy and this and that, but because they're curious. So take a step back, understand that you do have an opinion, that you want to probably punch someone in the face that day, not the kids, the adults, right? Because of what you heard the day before, right? You're gonna get home and you're gonna cry out of frustration. You will. I spent my entire year, my first year of teaching, crying. I didn't understand what was going on. I was like, Mississippi, remember? Right? And it was a room full of Vietnamese kids and Spanish-speaking kids, and me. And we were like, what's going on? Right? So recognize, do that inner work. Recognize how you're going to show up into that classroom, and remember that you need to give them the tools to allow them to choose for themselves and to explain for themselves that one side or the other side.
Or the multiple sides.
Or the multiple sides. Yeah.
Right.
I'm just being very polarizing here, yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right? But give them the tools. Right? Are they going to, and I'm always proud of myself because the gift that I give to my high schoolers when they graduate are two. They get to follow me on Instagram, which I don't even post. It's just like, and I tell them how I vote, what religion, if I have one, right? Like they never get to figure it out. Because, and that I did a good job. I roll my eyes at a lot of things, so they, it's high school, you're sarcastic, you get into those spaces. But it's just how our job is to show them everything and to explain to them everything. This side, the middle one, and the other side. And tell them the consequences. This side chose this, and this is what's happening because they're saying this. The middle side is doing this, and this is what's happening or what has happened in the world because of this, and the same with the third one. But it's your choice, because at the end of the day, you are the one who's building its own personality, character, and everything. So I think that's how I manage it. It's not easy, again. It's hard work, it's a lot of inner work, it's a lot of going into disconnecting. I know sometimes it's tempting. The summer money is really good, I can tell you this, but sometimes it's not worth it.
Yeah.
It's not worth it because it's not worth it. I need my week to cry and decompress. I just do. I need to go see the ocean. We live in Vegas, I need water, life, green leaves, I mean, it's true. So find those spaces. What's the best way for you to decompress? And find those spaces, and that will allow you to do the inner work and see how you show up and what have you. A lot of teachers don't do enough self-reflections, I think. That's very, very much missing in our practice, and we need it to be able to not get into the indoctrination type of accusations.
So everything she said.
Oh my God, thank you.
Everything she said.
She got it.
All of it. Especially the inner work part. Because that's the stuff that you need when you don't think you can continue. And the kids need you.
Yeah.
So where are you drawing from? Where's that fountain? And how do you find it?
That's self-care.
Yeah.
Please do it.
Okay, so this has become my new favorite question to ask.
Uh-oh.
No, just kidding.
It's not that kind of question.
Okay.
If you could suggest one thing for everyone in this room to read, watch, or listen to, what would be the one, just you can give us one thing of hey, you need to read, watch, or listen to blank. What would it be? You only get one.
Dang, one?
One?
It can be a
Can you
multi-part.
one, one movie,
Can I get
one
two?
book, one...
You can have one thing to
I need
either
two.
watch, read, or listen to.
Give me two. Can I get two? Please? I promise. Two. Just two.
One.
Fine. See, I was that disobedient child in class, but I got A's, so it don't matter. Dang it. All right, fine. There's two books I would recommend, but I would
She
say...
said one.
I know.
In
but
fairness, sir, I cannot turn off your microphone.
Fine.
So if you
All right,
gave
the one
two,
book-
I couldn't stop you.
All right, since we're in the teaching educational space, fine. I'll recommend one of the great one who forwarded your letter in your book, Dr. Bettina Love's Abolitionist Teaching, her book. Dr. Bettina Love. Read that book. Look her up. And I forgot the title about verbatim. It's long, but
Here we go.
It's on abolitionist teaching.
We want to do
There we
more
go.
than survive.
Yes.
Yes. We want to do more than survive.
Thank you.
Colon. Abolitionist teaching.
Yes.
And the pursuit of educational justice.
Yeah, it was too long. It's that book. That book. I promise you, that book will open your eyes. Stop using the word grit, please. Oh, it's so frustrating. Please stop using that whole grit, because that's for one, speaking out of privilege. Lord, just read it and you'll thank me later.
Wow.
That was a good one, wasn't it?
That was a good one.
That was a good one.
That was a good one. Because I've been sharing books all day in the talk and whenever I get a chance to share, I think I'm going to share a film. And the film is by Beyonce. And it is called Black is King.
Black is King. That's a good one.
And what the film does is try to remember the African continent and sort of our music, our dance, our culture. But Beyonce doesn't sit outside of that. She is central to that story. And I guess what I'm arguing here is that when we think about how education is going to be reformed, if it can be, if even we think about how it's going to be abolished, teachers will be central. You will be central to that effort. So it's the most incredible, stunning piece of work I've seen in a long time. But Black is King.
Black is King.
Beyonce.
My daughter watches it all the time.
It's on Disney Plus.
It's on Disney Plus. Yep.
I have so many things. Okay, one thing that I'm going to repeat because I did say it in the session that was here is a movie called Walkout. Walkout that talks about when California was under the no Spanish used in schools, right? So it's the story of this teacher helping the students. So, but two. I was sharing with the rest of the group what I had shared. So so the other thing, okay, so on Netflix, there is a series called Amend. It talks about the 14th Amendment, which is my favorite. And it splits the series, I think, in 5 episodes, and each episode talks about like gay rights, immigration, right? Black history, right? And I think that's powerful because a lot of people, maybe this comes, my government teacher is coming out, don't think about the 14th Amendment. They talk about free speech and this, but they don't think about the 14th and how, I mean, we can even question if we can utilize that amendment to get rid of the whole immigration situation that we currently have, right? So that's one thing that I would think about it. The other thing is more on because first one, it was sharing with the other ones, right? So
It's all about redefinition of rules.
right. So
I'm not a math teacher, but I can count.
I warned you. Okay, so the other one is a book. It's a very old book. It's a Brazilian author called Paulo Coelho.
Oh, which one?
The Alchemist.
Yes.
Right.
You say which one?
The Alchemist.
Oh,
El
The Alchemist.
Alquimista.
Yes. All right.
Okay.
She get a
So
pass for that.
I read it for the first time when
get a
I
pass.
was a
That's a good
teen,
one.
right? In like last year. But no, it's. I don't want to use the word self-help because I don't like it, like the word grit, right? Because I feel gaslit. It's called The Alchemist. The author is Paulo Coelho. He's a Brazilian
That's
author.
a good one. That's another
And
good one.
it talks about, it has nothing to do with education per se, but it talks about how what is our personal story and how to get to that, and how it is a journey. Our life journey is finding what we're here to do. Right? And I think I have it in my classroom. I have it in 4 languages, actually, right? So you get to read it in the original Portuguese, Italian, English, Spanish, whatever. But it's just really powerful, and it's one of those things that when you feel that you're burned out, just go back to it. It's such an easy reading. It's very easy. You're gonna go through it in a day, right? But it's just one of those things that keeps me going sometimes. It's like remembering, and I went through ARL. I'm not an educator like you guys originally, and I still, had to think about what's my personal story, what's my leyenda personal, right, that he talks about. So, yeah.
I'm glad you broke the rules.
I'm a rule breaker.
that's-
That's what we
that's
had to be,
yeah, that's
you
cool.
know?
Since she broke the rules,
you know,
it seems
I love
only
that.
equitable.
Would it be?
See, we're not
That'd
being
be
fair.
nice.
We're being equitable.
Thank you.
Go ahead and get one more.
All right, my second book would be by Joseph Campbell, Power of the Myth. That's a good one. Power of the Myth by Joseph Campbell.
Okay. I love doing this, and yet I feel like I'm always the bearer of bad news. Like, we're always ready for just a little bit more, and I come in with like, okay, well, that's all we have time for today. But we have reached the end of our Q&A. Will you all please join me in thanking them for sharing their brilliance
Thank
with
y'all.
us?
Thank you.
Thank y'all. Appreciate y'all.